We all know the story of the Future Timeline and Future Trunks. Despite their power, Trunks and Gohan weren't able to do anything against the androids. But maybe there's a way out. Maybe there's a way they could have actually defeated them and won, saving their timeline and not needing to travel back in time. But if that was possible, why didn't it happen? Well, I actually have an idea of how we could save them. The following video is a compilation of my old scenario where I explored this idea. Across a couple separate parts, we saw not only how Future Gohan and Future Trunks could have won, but also what could have happened after the fact. Future Gohan's able to survive, and together, he and Trunks get the win. But how are they able to do this? Well, sit back and relax. Because today, we'll be discussing what may have happened if Future Gohan and Future Trunks were able to win. With that intro out of the way, let's start with part 1. To start out, we'll go back a little bit before Gohan lost his arm to the androids, about a few months prior or so. Him and Trunks are looking for strategies to defeat the androids. Obviously, Trunks doesn't seem like he'll become a Super Saiyan anytime soon. Their training isn't bearing any fruits, as it is now, and it needs to be more effective somehow. They can't go into a more brutal form of training though, since they lack Senzu beans that would actually allow them to have more intense training to exploit the Zenkai boost and not worry about getting injured too badly. Gohan is trying to think, and that's when it hits him. The main cause of their problem is that they need Senzu beans, and if it's Senzu beans that they need, why not see if there's a way to get more of them by growing them? Some way, somehow, there has to be. But how will they do that? Korin is dead and they only have a few Senzu beans left, and they don't know how to actually farm them. They don't know the first thing about it. And here's where the big change comes in. Maybe they can try and find the lookout, and see if there's actually anything left there that Korin left behind that could give them some pointers on how to get Senzu beans. Gohan vaguely remembers a place where some of the Z fighters trained in order to prepare for the Saiyans, where some guy named Korin lived alongside Kami, and he remembers that's where they got Senzu beans from back then. Gohan and Trunks end up searching for the lookout, and they are eventually able to find it. So naturally, now that they found it, they decide to fly up to the top and see if there's anything they could find that gives them some pointers on how to farm Senzu beans. On their way up to the top though, they sense something odd, and they see a little area partway up. That thing they sense feels similar to some energy that Gohan sensed a while ago, but he can't really remember whose it is. In this scenario, we're going to add another character who will be vital to the cause, someone you may not expect to be important, but someone who nonetheless is of great value to Gohan and Trunks. It's not a new character or anything, or someone who doesn't belong there, it's someone who canonically was alive during this time. A surviving Z fighter, Future Yajirobe. If you guys remember from Dragon Ball Super, it was revealed that Yajirobe was actually able to survive the androids, thanks to Korin giving him the last Senzu bean. He's somehow lived, canonically, and he's found once again. What's Yajirobe gonna do, you may be asking? Well, let's take a look. Gohan and Trunks enter this part of the tower and look around. Suddenly, Gohan is kicked and caught off guard by someone. The kick didn't really do anything, and Gohan is able to turn around and guard against it, but then has a katana stuck near his face. He then realizes who it is, seeing Yajirobe in front of him, with Yajirobe also recognizing that this man here is Gohan, and that boy over there is Bulma's son. They've both grown a lot since he last saw them, but it has been over a decade, so that's only natural. After they catch up, Yajirobe explains what's happened to him, and how Korin saved his life when the androids attacked. Afterwards, Yajirobe went back into the tower, living there suspecting that the androids wouldn't be able to find him, since the two of them would have thought he was dead and wouldn't have returned to that part of the tower. This is perfect for Gohan and Trunks, and Gohan ends up telling Yajirobe why he came there in the first place. While Yajirobe may not have the expertise of Korin, he likes Gohan's idea and decides to help, since he can play a valuable role but he doesn't need a fight. He might not have any Senzu beans left, but Gohan and Trunks actually do have a few remaining. Since there's not many left, Gohan and Trunks keep a few of them for themselves just in case, and give the rest of them to Yajirobe to see if he could do anything with farming them. Using what he's learned about Senzu bean farming, he will now become a Senzu bean farmer to support the two of them in their fights. While it's not something we've ever seen in canon, it's not outlandish for Yajirobe to become a Senzu bean farmer. Given that he's lived with Korin and is mentored by him, he could know a thing or two about the practice. Alongside that, while we've never seen it in canon, manga, or anime material, Yajirobe actually became a Senzu bean farmer in Dragon Ball Online, one of the video games, so it is something that has happened before, even if it's just in a video game. It gives him something to do, rather than just hiding out all his time, and it will help erase the androids from existence because he's going to be helping Gohan and Trunks. With Yajirobe now reunited with Gohan, he continues farming Senzu beans and supplying Gohan and Trunks with more and more over the coming months. This is great, since now the two of them can do more intense training. This training is a lot more brutal, and allows the two to get some more Zenkais, empowering them even further. They take it slow since there's limited Senzu beans and they can't utilize the brutal training often, but it ends up working very well. The two of them are now leagues stronger than they were before. Trunks hasn't still accessed Super Saiyan, but he's a lot stronger in base, with Gohan being much stronger in both his forms by default. After some time passes, the two of them head out to fight the androids after a few months, and it doesn't really go well. They do a little better, but the encounter ends pretty much the same as when Gohan lost his arm. The androids have a tougher time fighting the two hybrid Saiyans, but they still come out victorious as Gohan and Trunks end up hiding to escape. This time, the two of them also have an extra Senzu bean, meaning that they're both able to heal fully after this. Gohan's arm gets severely injured this time, but given his greater strength and defense, he doesn't completely lose his arm now. After finding a safe place to escape to, Gohan and Trunks both use a Senzu bean, getting fully healed and receiving massive Zenkais. Trunks wants to go back to fight the androids right now, but Gohan stops him. It's far too risky to go right now, especially because they don't have Senzu beans, even with their boosted power. Before they go fight the androids again, they at least need to stock up on some Senzu beans, and they need to train more, so they retreat for now. This is obviously much better than what originally happened. Not only does Gohan keep his arm, but they both receive immediate Zenkais from this encounter, as well as being able to gauge where their power is in relation to the androids. Plus, Gohan isn't out of commission here like when he lost his arm and needed to heal, so the two of them are able to go back to training right away, well, at least right after they wait for a few more Senzu beans. They still can do some light training in the meantime. The plant doesn't really grow that quick. It takes a while for each batch to grow, and it's not like there's a lot to come from each harvest. It's Yajirobe after all, and it's not Korin doing the farming. Even with access to Senzu beans, it's not like they have an infinite amount all the time. They still gotta wait to get some more and more as time goes on. But Yajirobe's doing his best, and he's getting better as it goes along. Even if he were a master like Korin, it's not like it's something that he can make go faster. It's still gonna take a long time each time. After receiving the next batch, they go back to training again, with Gohan now having the main goal of making Trunks turn into a Super Saiyan. He's able to get Trunks close just like he did originally, but Trunks is still having trouble doing it. Gohan instead has to turn to a forceful approach, akin to how Piccolo once trained him, giving Trunks more brutal training even though he doesn't necessarily want to. Trunks will have to channel his anger and his will to survive in order to become a Super Saiyan. They have Senzu beans to fall back on, so Trunks can survive this intense training even if he gets too injured. Similar to what we saw in the Cell Saga when Goku was training with Gohan to transform, this ends up working. Obviously in this timeline, Gohan never had that time chamber experience, but it's similar to how it was when Gohan was training with Goku in the main timeline to get Super Saiyan, where it also took some force to get Gohan to transform, as well as some emotions. Through the forceful training, Gohan is finally able to get Trunks to transform, and this time he's actually able to hold it for a bit, and has learned to actually use it on command. They're both thrilled at the results, so Gohan heals up Trunks, and they continue training in order for Trunks to learn how to maintain the form better. Not only are the two of them stronger than they were before, but the fact that Trunks has Super Saiyan now is huge. After some time passes, the two of them are much more powerful in their base and Super Saiyan forms. They might not be able to take out both the androids at once, but if they strategize, they can take each out individually. Plus they have Senzu beans now, meaning they can get healed mid-battle or afterwards. The two of them head out to find the androids, this time with Trunks joining the fight, and they bring a couple Senzu beans along with them. They lure the androids out and begin to duel. With a plan already in mind and the androids not realizing how powerful they become, they work together first to immobilize 17, so they can work on taking out 18 first. They first work together on blinding 17 with 2 solar flares, and quickly pummel him into the ground, creating a smoke screen around him and burying him in some more rubble. Oh yeah, I should mention in case anyone asked, in the Dragon Ball Super manga, Trunks actually uses the solar flare and says he learned it from Gohan, so it is a technique that both of them apparently knew, and it's a very useful one at that. While 17's vision tries to come back, they can now focus on 18. While the difference isn't a massive amount, 18 is the weaker of the twins, and this makes her an easier target to get rid of first, even if only a little bit. The two of them together are actually powerful enough to match 18's power, and they end up using their perfect synergy and better fighting skill to badly injure her, until they're caught off guard by 17. To deal with this, similar to before, they attempt to now immobilize 18, with that being easier since she's already injured. 17 is angered and he fights the two half Saiyans, and they have more trouble since 17 is stronger, but employ the same methods they did with 18. With their teamwork and by disorienting 17, they end up injuring him more as well. 18 is now back in the fight, with her and 17 both injured, 18 being much worse off than her brother. Gohan and Trunks are a bit tired out and beaten up, so they break out their secret weapon. They brought along 4 Senzu beans, 2 for the middle of the fight and 2 for after. They each take a Senzu and get back to full strength, much to the shock of the androids. On top of that, they do get a small Zenkai as well, and now they launch their final assault. With their power boost, their combined power is now greater than that of 17, but that doesn't even really matter. Even if they were at the same power as they were before, they were already ahead of the fight. First, they take out 18, completely destroying her. She was already badly injured, and with that small Zenkai they got, combined with a full heal, they make easy work of her. 17 is absolutely enraged from watching his sister die, and attempts to make one last stand, but it's useless. He may have infinite energy, but he's not invincible to attacks, and his injuries only get worse and worse. Through brute force, they're able to defeat him as well, and as the smoke clears, they only see the remains of the twin androids. There's craters all around, one containing pieces of an orange bandana alongside a destroyed gun in its holster, and the other containing nothing but a partially destroyed denim jacket. They don't believe their eyes. Did they actually just win? The two of them celebrate, happy to have won and finally having rid the world of the android menaces. They each take those last 2 Senzu beams and fly off to Capsule Corp to meet Bulma, as well as picking up Yajirobe along the way. They all enjoy a large meal and a party and celebration, no longer having to worry about the androids. During this celebration, Bulma brings up that she's been working on the time machine still, if they ever want to use it when it's done. It's a long shot, but maybe if they went back in time, they could save everyone and no one would have ended up dying. The androids are gone, but all the damage they've done and the people they killed can't be reversed anymore. So maybe they could still go back in time, but is it really worth it? They're victorious here, and maybe if they go back in time in their own timeline, even if they save everyone, it could change the outcome. They still don't know that their kind of time travel doesn't go back in their own timeline, but instead goes back to another timeline. So they think doing this would change the outcome of what just happened. I left out with a poll on the last part about whether or not Gohan and Trunks would time travel, and a majority of you voted yes, so I'll be taking that into account. When Bulma asks about whether or not she can continue the time machine, it gets a mixed response. Personally, Bulma is in favor of the time travel, thinking it could work, but Gohan argues against it. All of their struggle would have been pointless, and for all they know, altering the past would erase them here. On top of this, he thinks it might not even work at all. What if instead of taking them back to the past in their own timeline, it instead takes them to an entirely separate timeline? If that were to happen, it wouldn't really help them at all, or so he thinks. I didn't really mention her in the last part, but Chi-Chi is still alive, pretty much like normal in that timeline. Of course, she has a say here as well, being prevalent to the story and all. Chi-Chi pleads to Gohan to do it, saying that it's at least worth a shot, and it's their only possible chance of bringing Goku back as well as everyone else. Trunks also agrees, feeling confident that his mom's machine will work, while supporting Chi-Chi's point. As for Yajirobe, he doesn't really care either way. While Gohan isn't against the idea, he's more so pessimistic and he feels like it won't work. He thinks the idea of time travel would be awesome, but he just doesn't know if it'll actually happen. But after hearing what everyone else has to say, he decides it's at least worth a shot. And if it doesn't work, at least the future's already safe and it won't really affect anything. Bulma gets back to work on the machine, but since everyone is basically rebuilding society at the moment, it does take some time for her to finish it. After a few years, the time machine is completed, and it's decided that they'll go back to when Frieza arrived on Earth, and once Goku returns from Yardrat. It's decided that the 2 people to go are Gohan and Trunks. Trunks needs to hide his identity, but Gohan really has no need to hide it since he was already born years before that, and even if he tried to hide his identity, they'd be able to tell it was him anyways. But this is good, it might even work in their favor. It means they'll be more trustworthy since it's 2 people instead of 1, and having Gohan there will further get them to trust the time travelers. Their first goal is to cure Goku of the heart virus, and they'll return 3 years later to kill the androids and see if it does anything to change their timeline. With the medication in hand, Gohan and Trunks say goodbye to their mothers as they travel to the past. Little do they know, timelines in Dragon Ball don't work the way that they hoped. It works more in line with what Gohan was thinking. It takes them to a completely separate timeline rather than their own. But they have no way of knowing that yet. Once they arrive in the alternate timeline, they wait for the moment Frieza arrives. Not long after, his ship is seen entering the atmosphere, and the time-traveling half-Saiyans head to the rally point. Gohan remembers this place, knowing that he was there a while ago. In their timeline, Goku was the one to kill Frieza and King Cold, but they can handle that this time. I mean, especially compared to their strength now, King Cold and Frieza are nothing to them. King Cold and Frieza step off the ship, and after swiftly taking out the soldiers, Trunks faces Frieza as Gohan takes on King Cold. Not having introduced themselves to the group yet, The Z fighters of this timeline are obviously present and they're watching very closely. These guys just came out of nowhere, and they're both Super Saiyans, and one of them appears to even be wearing Goku's clothing for some reason. It's really weird. Trunks and Gohan have a really easy time taking out these foes, with everyone stunned to see how easy they made it look. Gohan and Trunks head over to the group, with Trunks throwing down a capsule containing a fridge full of beverages. They might as well relax while they wait for Goku, and they know he's going to be here soon. Everyone addresses the elephant in the room when Krillin asks why this guy has the same orange clothes that he and Goku wear. They don't recognize the purple-haired guy, but the one in orange looks very familiar. President Gohan also points out that it's just like looking in a mirror. This guy strangely looks like him. Oh no. Is this another Raditz situation where Goku has an evil brother from outer space here to destroy Earth? Gohan, Krillin, and Piccolo are having some major deja vu right now. But Future Gohan laughs, knowing that he's been caught. Everyone was actually onto something, and he reveals that he's actually from the future. His name is Son Gohan. Everyone was relieved, but then also confused and speechless. Wait, this guy said his name is Gohan? Like, that kid right there? Is he playing a joke or something? There's no way this is actually Gohan from the future, right? And he's even a Super Saiyan. They realize he's telling the truth, and it's kinda weird, but at least it sorts out his identity. But what about that purple-haired kid? How can he go Super Saiyan? It's strange because normally they're supposed to have black hair, not purple, unless he's like a hybrid or something? Nah, that can't be possible. Trunks dodges all of the questions as Gohan tries to change the subject, and they end up avoiding the questions successfully. Trunks remains suspiciously silent, while Gohan is happy to talk with everyone, and the people with the most questions for him are Vegeta and his past self. After some time passes, Goku ends up arriving on Earth again. He explains what happened, but is caught off guard after he notices the sources of the two powers he sensed. He's able to recognize that this guy looks like an older version of his son, and he jokingly points that out but realizes it makes no sense. But then it's revealed to Goku that it is actually Gohan, an older version of him from the future. Gohan's pretty happy to see Goku after all this time. It's been years since he last saw him. Gohan and Trunks talk to Goku alone and explain everything, including Trunks revealing who he is. Interested to hear that these two are Super Saiyans, he wants to see their power in action. He spars with Trunks for a bit and is impressed, but is more interested in fighting Gohan. Gohan happily agrees to spar, and the two begin to fight. It's a nice moment for him, reminding him of the old times. Except this time, he's the stronger one, which is a little weird. They give Goku his medication, and they proceed to travel back to their time. Trunks is nervous that everyone will find out who he is, and he wants to get out of there quick, so Gohan leaves by hugging Goku, glad to have seen him again. As well as going up to his past self and giving him some words of motivation, the two Gohans shake hands, and the visitors end up going back to their timeline. Now the Z fighters of the past must train during this 3-year gap in order to prepare for the androids. Time passes and they return back, and nothing is different. As expected, they may have cured Goku, but the androids are still an issue in the past. For all they know, giving Goku the heart virus medication actually affected their timeline, but it just didn't really do anything big since the androids might have just killed him. So they decide to actually go back 3 years later to help defeat the androids. Maybe that can definitively set their timeline straight. Not much changes over this time period. Training in the past goes pretty normal, and everyone grows as strong as they were in the original story. After some time passes, Gohan and Trunks arrive in the past and are surprised by what they see. Moments before their arrival, Goku fell ill to the heart virus. And on top of that, the two androids found in the city were completely different from the ones in their timeline. And seeing these two androids, not even recognizing them, it gets them feeling a little uneasy. They slowly begin to realize that this is what Gohan theorized. They aren't in the past in their own timeline, they're actually in an alternate timeline, one in which everything is pretty much the same, except it's years behind where they were. Anything they do here won't help their timeline, only this one. Although a little discouraged now, they still decide to save this timeline anyways. They could just bail now and go back to their timeline and not help these guys at all, but it doesn't seem right. It's the right thing to do to help this timeline, regardless if it affects their timeline or not. If they can't prevent the androids in their timeline, they might as well try here. Together, the group ends up finding Jiro's lab and is prepared to fight the androids. And here, things begin to turn ugly. While confident to fight the androids, something completely changes here when it's revealed that there's a third android, number 16, who's stronger than both 17 and 18. Remember, Gohan and Trunks combined were enough to defeat one android, but they couldn't take them both on individually. When they defeated the androids, they had planning and strategy on their side, and since there were only two androids, it was easy to take out one first and then get the other. But having 3 here, especially a stronger one, that's gonna really mess up their plans. Android 16 doesn't get involved in the fight right away, but after chasing the androids from the lab and getting into a fight, 16 steps in to protect his quote-unquote siblings. Surprisingly, Gohan and Trunks were able to injure 17 pretty badly and nearly kill him, while the other Z fighters took care of 18, and by took care of, I mean they acted as bait basically. However, they weren't able to finish him off because 16 steps in right here to fight them, and they have trouble defending against him. And now with him in the fight, it completely messes it up. They now have to face 16, while the rest of the team faces 18, with 17 also there, albeit badly injured. Thanks to 16 stepping in, the androids are victorious in this encounter, with pretty much every Z fighter except for Krillin getting beaten up in the process. After being defeated, 18 says her goodbye to Krillin pretty much like normal, since he didn't get involved, and the androids take their leave to cause more chaos, as well as find Goku. Okay, this is getting kinda bad. If it were just Android 17 and Android 18, Gohan and Trunks would have had an easy time taking them out, especially with the help from the Z fighters. They were hoping to end this pretty quickly and stop the androids from ever being a threat. But having a third or even more powerful android there makes the group even more threatening to them. They'll have to plan a different way to defeat the androids now, otherwise this timeline will be no better off than theirs and it won't have a chance at surviving. Meanwhile, Goku is still recovering from his heart virus, and the group still needs to wait for him to wake up as well as keeping him away from the androids. With all of this going on, Piccolo bails from the group to see if Kami wants to fuse with him, kinda like Nail did with him on Namek. However, these 3 androids aren't the last of their problems. During this time, Future Gohan and Trunks join Gohan and Bulma, after getting word that another time machine has been found. Did another Future Trunks and Gohan show up? I mean, this is their time machine after all. Unbeknownst to them, another enemy is lurking about. One who is an android not too different from 17 and 18, but one who's much more powerful, and made in a completely different way. While Piccolo waits for Kami to merge with him, Bulma, Trunks, and the 2 Gohans keep investigating this time machine, and see what happened and where it came from. Hopefully they could find the source of this. So this next part goes kinda like normal at first. After hearing what's happening in Ginger Town, Piccolo and Kami merge as Piccolo heads over there to check it out. He ends up meeting Cell, and not too much changes here. Cell reveals who he is, and then suddenly, everyone else starts to show up out of nowhere and is about to take him out. Future Trunks arrives with Krillin, and then Cell tries to escape. Really? Another android? What even is this guy? I said Cell tries to escape for a reason. He attempts it, but it's not successful. As he tries escaping, Future Gohan shows up first, followed by Vegeta and Tien. They all run into Cell, and Cell is pretty much screwed here. They didn't know who this guy is, but they're understandably freaked out by how he looks. And they notice he looks scared, and it's probably for a good reason. Piccolo, Trunks, and Krillin shout out for all 3 of them to kill Cell, and that he's an android too, so they don't even hesitate. Gohan especially doesn't hesitate. He doesn't want another android to deal with. Cell's last words are quite poetic, and he only says 2 words. Oh shit! My imperfect Cell impression sounds kinda demonic in a way, but I'll keep it in. Before he knows it, he's turned into dust by Gohan, Vegeta, and Tien. Keep in mind, Cell hasn't absorbed enough humans yet to be strong enough to survive something like this and surpass the androids, so yeah, he's pretty much boned here. Gohan and Trunks are relieved. They really didn't want to deal with another android, but they didn't realize how big of a threat Cell truly was. Having Gohan there with him arriving at a different time than the others ended up working well, since it distracted Cell and it allowed everyone to stop him instead of Cell escaping. They just prevented one of the strongest villains they'd ever see from ever existing, and they didn't even know what they did. Piccolo catches everyone up to speed, and the group realizes that it was a good idea to kill Cell, and they probably just prevented a lot of unneeded chaos on top of what they're already dealing with. Wait, so this Cell is from another timeline, right? That means there's one here too, as well as Future Trunks and Gohan's timeline, correct? Not only is there more androids to deal with, but now they have to deal with more timeline stuff, and it's getting kinda confusing for them. Just to be safe, Trunks, Gohan, and Krillin head for Jiro's lab to see if that's the case, and unsurprisingly, it is. There's another Cell here, although he's still being produced, or whatever. I guess that's the best word to describe it. They destroy Cell, but while in the lab, they're able to find some interesting things. Blueprints. This is huge. With these blueprints for the androids, maybe they could find a weak spot or something and destroy them somehow. This would have been so much easier for Trunks and Gohan to do in their timeline. But at least they know it here so they could do it right away. They bring all the info and blueprints to Bulma, and she begins getting to work on it. Around the same time, another stroke of luck occurs. Goku has finally woken from the heart virus, and he's pretty much okay again. It seems like everyone's luck is turning around now. While Bulma works on those plans and tries to make some sort of way to self-destruct the androids, Goku decides that they maybe should try and train to fight the androids. He's going to try and surpass Super Saiyan, and he has the perfect idea in order to do so. He instant transmissions to everyone and decides that he's going to bring them to the Room of Spirit and Time to train. He brings 4 others along with him, Vegeta, Trunks, and the 2 Gohans. Due to him needing to convince Vegeta like normal, Vegeta and Trunks head in first and work on surpassing Super Saiyan. Goku is also kind of torn on what to do. He could head in next with Gohan or Future Gohan, or maybe just have the 2 Gohans going together by themselves. Wait, he has a better idea. The Room of Spirit and Time only has enough food for 2 people for a year, but they could bring 3 people in, and instead of a year, they could train for 8 months in order to work around the food issue. It might actually be better this way, because having 3 people training will be more effective than 2, and no one will be left behind. So even if they have less time to train, they have more effective training, so it kinda evens out. Problem solved. Meanwhile, the androids arrive at Kame House, and this encounter begins pretty normally, with 17 and Piccolo heading off to some deserted island in order to fight. This time though, they remain uninterrupted. There's no cell anymore, so the 2 of them begin their battle to the death. Krillin goes off to Bulma to get the remote, and Piccolo continues his fight with 17. 17 is advantaged though. Due to having infinite stamina, and after the fight goes on for some time, he's able to gain the upper hand against Piccolo. But this upper hand doesn't last that long. He hears someone yell at him, and he looks up to see Tien way above in the air. Not wanting to stand around any longer and watch, Tien's gonna intervene now. He launches a tri-beam that completely immobilizes 17, and he gives Piccolo an opportunity by doing this. Placing 2 fingers on his forehead, Piccolo's ki soars and he begins to charge a special beam cannon, and before 16 or 18 can even intervene, it's too late. Immobilized and injured by Tien, 17 can't run, and then he suddenly feels a burning pain in his chest. A brilliant beam of energy pierces through the young android's torso, bursting through the concurrent burning energy of the tri-beam and creating a spectacular light show as it flies off into the atmosphere. 17's expression turns into one of fear as he coughs up blood with his last breath and falls to the ground dead, with a gaping hole in his chest. The tri-beam seizes as Piccolo falls down on one knee, with Tien collapsing towards the ground as well in exhaustion. Tien is pretty drained, as is Piccolo, but the 2 of them watch as the dust settles and they see the android laying there motionless. Piccolo gives off a weak smirk and thanks Tien. They were actually able to kill 17. The 2 are actually somewhat okay this time, and aren't near death like they were originally. Yamcha's obviously there too, and he heads over to help the 2 up. 18 is both angry and fearful with her brother now dead, and 16 is now preparing to fight. It doesn't look good at all, but they assume a battle stance. However, help arrives. Goku instant transmissions in and sees what happened. 17 is dead, with 16 and 18 about to attack Piccolo, Tien, and Yamcha. Goku could try and fight now, but with both 16 and 18 out for blood right now, it's too risky. He says he'll be back, and leaves with his friends, who are in much better condition than they were originally, and they return to the lookout. Now, they just gotta wait for Vegeta and Trunks to exit. Vegeta and Trunks end up leaving the room pretty much around where they were before in terms of power, except for Trunks being about even with Vegeta this time instead of a little weaker, since he was stronger beforehand. The 2 of them go off to find 18 and 16, which lets Goku and the 2 Gohans head in. This training experience should be fun. Future Gohan, knowing himself better than anyone, will be able to help Gohan achieve Super Saiyan much more efficiently, and with Goku there, both of his sons, or both versions of his son I guess, will learn to go beyond Super Saiyan alongside him. And it's also good in terms of bonding. Goku doesn't need to divide his attention for one son since both are there, and both of them do want to have some sort of bonding with him. As for the 2 Gohans, present Gohan begins looking up to his future self, kinda like an older brother, and they obviously get along very well because they're pretty much the same person after all. Well, they are the same person biologically, and also their personalities pretty much line up. Gohan is able to access Super Saiyan much earlier on with the help of Goku and his future self, and the 3 of them all work towards surpassing it together. Meanwhile, on the outside, Vegeta and Trunks are making their own progress and are beginning to track down 16 and 18. They eventually do end up finding the 2 of them. 18 was busy slaughtering people to draw out Goku and everyone, as well as venting her frustrations on all these civilians. 16 doesn't participate in the massacre, but he is present. This should be fun for Vegeta. Krillin has the remote and is trying to find them as well, not knowing Vegeta and Trunks are there, but then he senses their ki and heads to them. Considering Super Vegeta was able to give Semi-Perfect Cell a hard time, yeah, it's not going to really go well for the 2 androids. Vegeta faces 18, ready for revenge, while Trunks faces 16. Both the androids are pissed off and ready for a fight. Even 16 throws aside his pacifist nature to avenge his so-called brother. With an amazing display of power, Vegeta buffs up and powers up to his new Super Vegeta form, aka Super Saiyan Grade 2 to get more technical. 18 doesn't really care. Vegeta can't be much stronger than before, he just buffed his muscles up a little bit. She ends up realizing how wrong she was. Vegeta demolishes her in a fight, and she underestimates Vegeta due to their fight before. Vegeta gets bored pretty quickly, and seeing how strong he is now, he decides to finish her off. With 18 beaten up and unable to fight back, Vegeta wants to end it. Cupping his hands in front of him and gathering energy, Vegeta charges a final flash, a new technique that he wants to show off. 18 watches in awe and fear as she sees this giant beam of light coming towards her, consuming her field of view and eventually engulfing her as well. With an over-the-top finish, the final flash completely erodes the terrain and it surrounds the android. In her last moments, 18 is overcome with fear and regret. Regret for her not being able to avenge her brother. The beam disintegrates her, and another android has been erased from this existence. It's a little sad really. These two could have been redeemed potentially, but the Z-Fighters never got the chance to see their good side and potentially turn them into better people. Due to the circumstances, it really had to end like this. Had 17 not been killed, who knows, this may have gone very differently. 16 is the sole android remaining, and is up against Trunks. This is it. The androids are finally going to be dealt with, and the two Hybrid Saiyans can return to their home after saving this timeline. Trunks makes it quick. He'd normally do this with a sword, but now that he's in his Saiyan armor and without his sheath, and having trained with Vegeta, he takes a different approach. He powers up to Super Saiyan Grade 2, or what he calls Super Trunks, and begins his duel with 16. 16 puts up a much better fight than 18, but it's not enough. Slowly, 16 deteriorates over the fight, his mechanical body unable to keep up with such harsh conditions. While the other two androids were human, Trunks has no qualms about killing this guy at all, since he's fully artificial, not to mention the fact that he's an enemy right now. Trunks prepares a Masenko, destroying 16 entirely as he explodes into pieces. "I'm impressed, Trunks, really. As expected of the son of the prince." Vegeta and Trunks are content, having succeeded in their goal. The androids are defeated now. They return to the lookout, and after some time, Goku and the two Gohans exit in their Super Saiyan form, excited to show everyone what they've accomplished. Wait, what? The androids are dead already? Oh, well, I guess they can't show off this new form of Super Saiyan then, huh? Well, at least they got the training, I guess? I mean, yeah, they could use it in the future, but kinda saddening now that they know that they can't really use it yet. With the androids defeated, Gohan and Trunks have completed their mission and helped save this timeline, although it didn't reverse the damage in their own. On the bright side, they're a lot stronger. Trunks has Super Saiyan Grade 3, even though it's kinda useless and he uses Grade 2, while Gohan has Super Saiyan Grade 4. They thank everyone for their help, as well as being thanked in return. With the celebration and a feast, the two say their goodbyes. Gohan spent some time with Goku and Chi-Chi in these last few days, not having seen Goku in a while, and of course, present Chi-Chi wants to see this other Gohan as well. And yeah, future Gohan and present Gohan both hang out together here too, glad to have crossed paths. Trunks, on the other hand, is glad to have seen Vegeta, and also the past version of his mother, and I guess his baby self. Not as cool as Gohan getting to bond with his past self, but hey, it's something at least. He can't really bond with a baby though. Anyways, the two of them say their farewells as they head into the time machine and go back to their time. Oh yeah, and they kill Cell in their timeline before he even comes about. They're not going to wait around and they don't really want to deal with it. So they decide to track down the lab with the help from Bulma, and they end up doing that, and they can kill Cell before he's even born. So, what now? Well, the timeline is split here, and I could cover either the future one or the past one. But this is about future Gohan and future Trunks, so I'm going to stick to covering their timeline in the future Buu saga and whatever comes afterwards. As for the present timeline or the main one, I can cover that once I finish covering the future Gohan and Trunks timeline if you guys truly want that. But I'm sure I'm going to briefly cover it sometime in the future if they cross paths again. I'm going to save that for another time, and I'll go into the future timeline's Buu saga in the next episode. Following the arrival in their timeline, one of the first things Gohan and Trunks do is begin their search for Jiro's lab. They're successful after getting some help from Bulma and using what they learned in the past, and are able to collect any potentially important plans while also destroying Cell before he even gets a chance to be born. With that out of the way, and not much else to do at the moment, we have a brief period of peace. One thing that the two of them consider is trying to bring back some of the people who died, at least whoever they can. A lot of you mentioned this in the comments, but honestly, I don't see it happening. There's a few issues here. One, there's no Dragon Balls on Earth since Piccolo died. 2, if they try to go to Namek again, they're going to have a lot of trouble finding it, and I doubt they'll even be able to. And 3, even if they do manage to find it, Goku will stay dead due to him dying from the heart virus. But the biggest issue of them all, they can't even get to New Namek. No one knows where New Namek is, and the only way anyone can get there before was when Goku used instant transmission. But here, there's obviously no Goku. So the only way they could find New Namek is if they had help from King Kai or Goku himself. But they have no way to contact those two. You could argue that maybe King Kai or Goku would try to contact Gohan or Trunks first, but that's pretty unlikely. Otherwise, that probably could have just happened in canon with Trunks' timeline. I could do some whole thing where they get into contact with these two, but that seems very unlikely to happen. Plus, who knows? I would assume everyone is happy in the afterlife much like Goku. They've been gone for about 2 decades, so bringing them back now is too late and it's kinda weird. I mean, if any of this was possible, it probably would have been done in between Dragon Ball Z and Super when Trunks was able to actually do this. But either he wasn't or he didn't want to, so I don't feel like that's gonna happen here either. Time passes, and there's still a period of peace. Gohan and Trunks help rebuild society, but they also get some training in just in case. They are the last remaining defense for Earth, so they do keep up with it. Not much of interest happens during this time though. Trunks does access Super Saiyan Grade 4, and that's what they end up training with, but they have a new goal now. In the Room of Spirit and Time, Future Gohan remembers something he saw from the past Kid Gohan. Much like in canon, that Gohan was briefly able to access a power beyond Super Saiyan, something way stronger than anything they've seen before, and Future Gohan wants to see if he can find out what that is. Same with Trunks. And it's good that they're training, as a new threat is about to appear. Since we don't know too much about the Buu saga in the future, we'll have to be a little creative here, but I'm going to keep it grounded and based on what little we do know. One day, in one of the cities, an attack occurs similar to that of the androids. It's really just bait, performed by a strong enemy named Deborah, and he's attacking the city to try and bring out any potential people to take energy from. If this plan works, he should find some strong fighter, which will be a good source of energy for him. Trunks and Gohan learn of the attack on the news, and they prepare to head over. Is it an android again? They don't really want to deal with this again, so they want to get rid of it as fast as possible. However, when they're about to leave, 2 strange figures confront them, saying they need to talk. Gohan and Trunks get hostile, assuming that these might be the enemies, and they can't waste time. The 2 reveal themselves to be Kais, named Shin and Kibito, much like King Kai who Gohan knows of, but higher above him. They explain what's happening and why they're here, and why they need Gohan and Trunks' help. Luckily, Gohan and Trunks were heading over there anyways, so they all head towards the city. Over the past few years, Babidi has been on Earth hiding, trying to gather energy, but not much energy has been around for him to gather. Being impatient now, Babidi wants to take action, and he sends Deborah out to actually draw out some strong energy sources. And his plan is kinda working, but he's gonna get more than he bargained for. Shin and Kibito want to actually train Gohan and Trunks first before they go to fight Deborah, explaining that he's a very strong foe. They really don't want to hold up on fighting him, but they realize that Shin has better judgment here, and this is probably the best option, so it should be helpful here. I mean, it worked for them against the androids, so why not? While flying, Shin transports everyone to the sacred world of Kais. Shin picks up on the fact that Trunks has a sword, so it gets him thinking and he's curious to see if Trunks can wield the Z-sword, if he's even able to free it from the stone. Well, Gohan is the stronger one here. Maybe Trunks can use the sword to fight Deborah since he's more experienced with that kind of stuff. While Gohan trains with Shin and Kibito, Trunks is tasked with freeing the Z-sword. Eventually, he is able to do it, struggling at first to actually wield it, but starting to get the hang of it after a few hours, and getting exceptionally stronger. Gohan also had some good training, with Shin and Kibito not holding back, knowing that Kibito could heal Gohan, and they can exploit Gohan's Zenkais. However, their training was still very brief, and the 2 hybrids are stronger but not by an insane amount. However, it should be enough to face Deborah. In less than a day, the Kais take them back to Earth, and they go to confront Deborah. Deborah is pleased to see that he actually has some contenders, and now he goes face to face with Gohan and Trunks. The 2 of them combined are actually stronger than Deborah, and this causes Deborah to try and use his spit right away. Trunks quickly blocks it with the Z-sword, but it catches the sword and it turns to stone, much to the shock of everyone else. The sword falls to the ground and crumbles. At least they know about the spit now, so they can avoid or deflect it, but it kinda sucks that the sword is now useless. Deborah is outmatched here, and eventually, the 2 of them are able to kill the Demon King. Babidi isn't too hard to kill either, I mean, obviously he's not very strong. So, that wasn't actually too hard. Crisis averted. And this time, Shin and Kibito survive as well, and by extension, Shin surviving means Beerus survives. In the original story, both Shin and Kibito die, and since Shin dies and he's linked with Beerus, that caused Beerus to die in the future timeline as well. But after Deborah's death, something weird happens here. The Z-Sword, which crumbled after turning into stone, gets restored, although it's in pieces right now. And since it's in pieces, this causes Elder Kai to be freed from the sword, which no one actually expected to happen. He introduces himself and he learned what happened, and is impressed with these two hybrid Saiyans for being able to do that well in a fight, and is glad to see that Shin has been doing his job right. Well, as far as he knows, Shin has been doing his job right, but we all know otherwise, and Shin hasn't really been the best. But he's better in this timeline at least, and he accomplished something, so that's good, I guess? I don't know. Glad to have been victorious, Shin and Kibito thank Gohan and Trunks for their help, and are impressed with the ability of these two. After some discussion, Gohan and Trunks actually ask if they can train under Shin and Kibito. Their training as of late has been going well, but this would definitely be a lot better. Maybe they could finally learn Super Saiyan 2, which that's not what they call it right now, they just know it's a form beyond Super Saiyan. Shin is actually happy that the two of them asked this. He could take them in as apprentice Kais, sorta like Kibito, and maybe Kibito can finally get that promotion to become a Supreme Kai. Pretty cool for him. Universe 7 had multiple Supreme Kai before Buu killed them all, so yeah, this should be fine here. These two aren't too interested in becoming Supreme Kai at the moment, and they really just want to train, kinda like how present Gohan and future Trunks are both apprentice Kais due to their training, but Shin keeps them in mind as potential Supreme Kai, kinda like Beerus and Whis are with Goku and Vegeta as potential gods of destruction. But due to the two of them helping to stop Buu, Shin thinks they'll be good candidates for this position. Speaking of Buu, they need to do something about his egg now. Shin mentions that he'll take the egg to Lord Beerus and have it disposed of, although Beerus is probably still asleep at the moment. This mention of Beerus intrigues Gohan and Trunks, interested to learn of this guy and who he's supposed to be. A god of destruction? That sounds like a pretty important position, and apparently it is, and is held by one of the most powerful beings in the universe. Luckily for them, this is going to be part of their training now. Since their training as apprentice Kais, even though they might not end up as Supreme Kai anyways, it's still worthwhile for them to learn about this stuff. If they're going to train as Supreme Kais, they better learn the pecking order of the gods. And there's no question that that would include Lord Beerus. Maybe they'll even get to meet him. But with the Earth saved now, Gohan and Trunks can focus on training and learning new things as apprentice Kais. It should be fun. They'll grow a lot stronger, help protect the universe, as well as learning about different parts of their universe and the multiverses. As for visiting Earth from time to time, it's not really a problem from them. Shin has the Kai Kai, and since they're going to be apprentice Kai, they're going to learn the same technique. Kai Kai is pretty much a better instant transmission, so they'll have this and be able to travel to Earth whenever they please really. Well, at least when they're not training. This way, it'll help them get beyond Super Saiyan, as well as being able to protect Earth better. With Shin, Kibito, and Elder Kai as their new masters, they begin their training. It's good for them to finally have found some teachers. This is huge for them. They learn a bunch of new techniques and get more powerful, as well as getting new uniforms. I mean, the uniforms are kind of weird to them, but it fits being a Supreme Kai, so they don't really question it. Over the course of this training, not only do they get stronger, but they do end up accessing Super Saiyan 2. And even though they're proud of that, there's something else that comes up that they find out about. After they find Super Saiyan 2, Elder Kai mentions that doesn't compare to something else. They're curious as to what he's talking about, and of course, Elder Kai is referring to his ability to unlock potential. Unlocking potential. That sounds kinda interesting. I mean, if it's gonna make them stronger, they might as well try it. So now they gotta ask what the ritual actually involves, and it's pretty straightforward. They just gotta sit still for a while as Elder Kai dances around them and performs the ritual. I mean, maybe they'll get a little impatient, but that's not really a hard way to unlock a new form at all. Plus, unlike the Buu saga, Gohan's not short for time here. They're gonna actually be able to sit through the whole ritual, and it's not like Trunks is gonna be left out. Both of them will actually get access to this form. Elder Kai first performs the ritual on Gohan, and he sits all the way through it. After he finishes the ritual, Gohan doesn't really feel that different. Elder Kai tells him to power up like Super Saiyan, and he does. And he doesn't feel or look too different other than his power, but he's amazed at how strong it is. Future Gohan is now Ultimate Gohan, much like Gohan from the original timeline. Since he sat through the whole ritual, and he's had better training beforehand, I'd say Ultimate Future Gohan is more powerful than Ultimate Present Gohan, which is pretty huge. Next, Trunks receives the ritual, and much like Gohan, he has a huge increase in power. The two of them are very close, but Trunks is a little bit behind Gohan in terms of power. But the two of them in their ultimate form are insanely strong. Shin, Kibito, and Elder Kai are completely speechless at how strong they are. They might have even surpassed them already, even though they're just disciples right now. It's kinda crazy to think about. Maybe these two will actually be good contestants to fight Lord Beerus if he so desires. That's a little bit crazy for them to be thinking about. As time goes on, they keep up with their training, and they're making a lot of progress with learning techniques and stuff. Being apprentice Kais and all, they also have the healing ability much like Trunks had in the manga, which every apprentice Kai has. They completely stop using their Super Saiyan form. Ultimate is much stronger and much easier to train in, and it lets them become so much stronger over this period of time. But with the time passing, eventually, Beerus is waking up from his nap. He's been having a weird dream about some rival that he wants. A super something god? Super Saiyan God. That's what he's been dreaming of. He wakes up and is greeted by Shin first, who brings him Boo's egg, and he destroys it instantly. He's not too interested in that right now. He's glad to see Shin though. He asks Shin if he knows anything about some sort of Saiyan, and Shin actually does. It's actually very convenient for Beerus because Shin is training two of them right now as Supreme Kai. This shocks Beerus, and he's surprised to learn that there's two strong Saiyans out there. Maybe these are the rivals that he was dreaming of. Shin is kind of worried about Beerus fighting them, but he goes along with it. And even though they're a lot less strong than Lord Beerus, they might be able to actually give him a good fight, and Beerus might be interested in them. Shin doesn't really have a say in the matter anyways, and Beerus heads over to the sacred world of Kais. Gohan and Trunks are in the middle of their training, and are taken aback when they see two new visitors appear, Beerus and Whis. They introduce themselves, to which the two hybrid Saiyans respond by kneeling in respect, properly addressing Beerus. They obviously know who he is by now. I mean, they are Kais after all, so they know how to act around him and they treat him with respect. Beerus is very pleased to see that these two are disciplined and respectful towards him, as is Whis. They could tell that these two have been trained pretty well. Beerus then decides to lead with his question. Do these two know anything about a Super Saiyan God? Well, they don't have any idea actually. They know about Super Saiyan and that there's a form beyond it called Super Saiyan 2, but besides that, they don't know of any Super Saiyan God. They don't even really use Super Saiyan anymore because their ultimate forms are so much more potent in terms of power, so they don't really have any need. Interesting. Beerus is curious to see what kind of power these two possess otherwise, even without Super Saiyan God. He is a bit disappointed, but he's mainly here for a fight. Naturally, Gohan and Trunks oblige and agree to fight. First he faces Trunks alone, and he's actually pretty impressed with the power of this half Saiyan. Trunks is able to get some hits on Beerus, but obviously they don't really do anything, except maybe tickle a bit. But the fact that he can even land hits on Beerus impresses the Destroyer God, and it definitely proves that Trunks has potential, and this guy isn't even the strongest of the two. Beerus thanks Trunks for his brief fight, and then with only a few hits, he's able to knock Trunks into the ground. Next up is Gohan, and he's stronger than Trunks, but not by a massive amount. He fares better than his old protege, but like I said, it's not really anything that can match Beerus in power. He lasts longer than Trunks did, and he does a lot better in the fight, but the result in the end is pretty much the same. I have to say, even though it wasn't much of a challenge, the power you two possess is most impressive. Beerus is sorta disappointed that there's no Super Saiyan God here, but these two fights showed him that these two have potential to become really good rivals for him in the future. He's pretty pleased with what he's seen. Whis then butts in, however, giving his theory of something. Of course, no one knows about the ritual, and they don't even consider going to Namek to ask Porunga about it yet, but Whis has his own suggestion. Maybe, with sufficient training, the God form can be unlocked naturally somehow. These two already do possess God Ki. They are Kais after all, but considering how they access Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan 2, maybe training and experience will allow them to access Super Saiyan God as well. Sure, it wouldn't be accessed in the same way as Super Saiyan with anger or sadness, but Whis theorizes that they might be able to help these two unlock the form if Beerus really wants to see it that badly. This does intrigue Beerus. He hadn't really thought about that. It is a God form after all. God is right in the name. And since these two have God Ki already, they might just need training to access it. There already technically are gods right now. And while they don't really know it, this is actually how Vegeta accessed the form. As far as we know, he had no ritual, and through his training and accessing God Ki alone with Whis, Vegeta was able to use this form. That's why we saw him with Super Saiyan Blue back in Resurrection F, cause he never got a ritual. And to get Super Saiyan Blue, you first need to do Super Saiyan God, so he had to access this somehow. So this theory from Whis actually is correct, and they just don't know it yet because they need to put it to the test. Beerus then goes up to Shin, and he apologizes, but he'll have to take Shin's students for himself. Shin tries to argue against it, but Beerus assures him that he and Whis can train them to be way stronger than anything Shin is doing. And besides, Beerus is the one in control here anyways, so Shin reluctantly has to agree and allows him to train the two. He then offers the two to train with him, and they agree right away, assuming that it's okay with Shin, so it's okay if they go. And they're also a little bit intimidated by Beerus, so they don't really want to say no. As long as they can visit home every so often like they've been doing, they're fine with it. They have the Kai Kai after all, so it's not really an issue anyways. Beerus is content, happy to have these two training under him, as well as with Whis. He warns them though, their training will be much more intense. Also, they don't really need those silly Kai outfits anymore, so they change back into their normal clothes. It's a shame. They were actually kind of beginning to warm up to those outfits. Shin is a little schmizzed, but it's not too bad. They might come back later, and it's not like Beerus is training them to become gods of destruction or anything, just rivals. So Shin is hopeful that his Kai students will return again. Whis then departs with Beerus and these two, and they anxiously look forward to arriving to Beerus' planet. Training commences, and it is much more rigorous than what they've been doing with Shin. However, they quickly do get adjusted, and they begin seeing great gains. Not knowing how to access the form, they struggle a bit at first. However, Whis does teach them all about tranquility and calmness, and through constant training as well as meditation, they're able to reach a point where they can actually tap into their God Ki and access the new form, but it does take a while. One day, during his training with Whis, Gohan is the first one to do so. He's actually pretty surprised, and he doesn't hold the form for too long, but Whis notices a dramatic increase in power, as well as the obvious physical changes, with the hair and the eyes and all, as well as his aura and body even looking completely different. There's no doubt about it. That is a new form, and it is possibly that Super Saiyan God that they've been looking for. Beerus notices this, and he is pretty thrilled, and it turns out his premonition was true. They continue their training, and eventually, both are able to actually access the form fully, and maintain it, as well as eventually master control of it. They can even use it for prolonged periods of time right now, and basically drop using Ultimate altogether. This form is a lot more effective to use in training, especially against each other and Whis. It is way stronger than they ever expected. But Whis theorizes something. There might be something even beyond Super Saiyan God. However, they're not going to try to access it yet. Something happens that does interrupt their plans. On the sacred world of Kais, something unexpected happens. While training one day, Gohan and Trunks sense something going on with Shin and Kibito, and a massive increase in power on that planet. Beerus and Whis feel it too, but don't decide to intervene. These two can probably handle it on their own. Gohan and Trunks use the Kai Kai to transport themselves to the planet, and when they arrive, they're horrified at what they see. The whole planet is in ruins, and Kibito is nowhere to be seen, and they can't even sense him. In the distance though, they see Shin fighting someone. They rush over, but it's too late. A final blast is shot towards Shin that incinerates him completely. The two of them are speechless. Shin is dead now, and that means Beerus is gone too, since they're linked, and Whis is now out of commission, frozen in place. This is a really bad scenario. They look up and they see what killed Shin. They don't believe their eyes. It's Goku. Or at least, it looks like Goku. And alongside Goku, there's someone else there who appears to be a Kai. They could tell something is wrong. That can't actually be Goku alongside him. This Ki feels too different, and his attire and everything don't match at all. Of course, this is Goku Black and Zamasu, and they attack without asking questions. Gohan is paralyzed with fear and doesn't even try to fight back at first, only defending. Trunks tries to get Gohan to snap out of it, realizing that this isn't actually Goku they're fighting. And eventually, Gohan does snap out of it and realize that he needs to fight. Even if this guy looks like Goku, they need to defeat him. He's obviously a threat. In a short fight, they're able to actually kill Goku Black pretty easily, with Gohan not really knowing how to feel about that. But this Kai won't die at all for some reason. They eventually learn who he is and why he's here. His name is Zamasu, and he plans to wipe out every mortal. He first came here to eliminate Shin so Beerus wouldn't get in his way, and they can't stop him, because he reveals that he's immortal. By fighting Zamasu, they're only delaying the inevitable. Without knowing what to do, Gohan mentally communicates with Trunks. They need to retreat somehow, so they're gonna fake their death against Zamasu, then hide their Ki and head to Earth and get the time machine. They don't know what else to do right now. And yeah, they are Kais and they could use the time ring, but Shin probably hasn't told them about it at this point, and even if he has, they wouldn't know where to find it. And even if they did try to find it, it would be too risky to search around on this planet, if Shin even has his own. Zamasu launches a large attack against them, and the two of them block it, but slowly drop their Ki to make it seem like they're being killed. Zamasu puts more energy into the blast, and while it's happening, before it dissipates, they use the Kai Kai to go to Earth, with Zamasu feeling like he killed them. He's disappointed that Goku Black died though, but he doesn't care too much at the moment. If Goku Black was that weak that he couldn't handle these two, then he doesn't really need a partner. he'll be fine continuing this plan in solitude. Their plan worked, and they escaped without Zamasu realizing it. However, they can't use Super Saiyan God or any transformation right now to increase their ki, because if they do, then they'll end up being tracked, so they're just going to remain in their base form with their ki suppressed. They need to revive Shin somehow, and they consider going to New Namek, but it's too risky. By this point, they do know where it is, and they have Kai to get there, and like I said earlier in this episode, when they considered asking Piranha to get Super Saiyan God, they could just go there if they wanted. Just as a quick side note though, as I explained in the last part, they won't be reviving anyone even with this, due to the reasons that I listed in that part. And while they won't revive the Dragon Team, they do need to revive Shin. This is very different. Shin needs to be alive, and this is a priority right now. They could decide to revive the others later on, but it's unlikely and it's definitely not going to happen right now. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Since I'm going off on kind of a tangent right now, I feel like I've given enough explanation as to why they won't revive them now. Now back on Earth, they quickly grab Bulma and Chi-Chi to make sure they're safe, and then they hop in the time machine with them. They'll explain what's happening later. Luckily, Earth is safe right now, but probably not for long, so they need to get out of there. Thankfully, Bulma did have extra fuel for the time machine just in case, and the four travel back to the past. The point in time in which they arrive is a bit earlier than Trunks arrived before, just after the Universe 6 tournament. They arrive at Capsule Corp, where they all quickly get out of the machine and realize that they're safe. Bulma then runs out and sees what happened. She sees Trunks and Gohan again, and also what looks to be like older versions of herself and Chi-Chi. She's confused, but they're going to explain later once everyone else comes here. So Bulma calls the others over. Luckily, Zamasu doesn't know they're alive right now and he hasn't tracked them down yet, so they should be safe for the time being. Even with the time ring, he doesn't know that these two are alive or in this timeline at all, so he's not going to travel here for the time being. So hopefully they do remain safe for now. Unlike how Trunks showed up unconscious, Gohan and Trunks are actually conscious and know where they are, alongside Bulma and Chi-Chi who are with them. Bulma decides to call everyone over so Gohan and Trunks can explain what's happening. Soon enough, Goku and Vegeta appear and they get filled in on everything. Beerus and Whis are with them as well, to which Gohan and Trunks start profusely apologizing. It's a little awkward since they don't know what Gohan and Trunks are apologizing for, but then they actually start to explain what happened, because they know Beerus will be pretty mad once he hears this. So everyone finds out what happened in the future timeline. Babidi and Dabura showed up and were defeated pretty easily, then Gohan and Trunks trained at Shin, and now they were training with Beerus, until whatever just happened. Which they go on to explain next about Zamasu and how there's some immortal Kai going around killing gods. Just like they expected, Beerus was pretty pissed off about this. Not blaming them because obviously it's not their fault that there's some immortal Kai going around, but he's mad at this Zamasu guy, and he immediately wants to go with Whis to find wherever this guy is. And Whis knows he's in Universe 10, so they decide to pay Gowasu a visit. While Beerus and Whis leave, in the meantime, everyone begins catching up on Earth. I mean, it's a pretty rare opportunity that you get to meet your future self. Goku, Vegeta, Bulma, and Chi-Chi end up meeting future Bulma and Chi-Chi, who they didn't even realize were alive. I mean, of course, Bulma would also want to talk to her future self about the time machine. It's a pretty interesting development, and it's impressive that she was able to make it with spare parts during some sort of apocalypse, basically. And Chi-Chi, being Chi-Chi, would want to meet her future self. Also, her future self would probably want to meet her past self, as well as past Gohan. Of course, this would be some nice closure for her, although it would be a little sad for her to meet Goten because she was never able to have another kid with Goku. But seeing Goku again, as well as seeing another version of Gohan, that's sort of comforting, even if she still has her own Gohan with her. And speaking of that, Gohan and Trunks speak to their past selves once again. Well, for Trunks, the last time he saw himself, he was a baby. But present Trunks is actually pretty happy to meet his future self. He thinks it's kinda cool. Both Gohans, of course, remember each other since they trained together, and they're both pretty impressed with each other. I'll have to get into it in another video, but it'll be pretty brief since there aren't too many differences in this timeline, but there are some that I want to cover. One of them being, of course, that Gohan did keep up his training for a little bit, but he doesn't have Ultimate. He was eventually able to access Super Saiyan 2, and although he hasn't been training a lot recently, he's still been keeping up. Given the peacetime, it's not too surprising for future Gohan. If he were in peace, he would also want to become a scholar like his past self. But nonetheless, he's impressed that he was still able to keep up with his training anyways. And of course, present Gohan's pretty amazed with how strong his future self is. I mean, he was strong and motivational before, but now it's a completely different person basically. He's technically a god now. He and Trunks both have that Super Saiyan God form that Gohan witnessed when Goku and Vegeta got theirs, which now makes present Gohan kinda want this form for himself too. This meetup is pretty heartwarming and fun for everyone. But let's get to the other side of the story with Beerus and Whis. They end up arriving in Universe 10, and they meet up with Gowasu and confront Zamasu. Goasu's obviously pretty confused with what's happening and why Beerus and Whis are here, especially now with these allegations that his apprentice is now some sort of bad guy. Goasu isn't really too quick to believe this, while Zamasu is shocked and kinda nervous now that Beerus is here accusing him of this. Beerus then backs it up with evidence, telling them about what happened with Gohan and Trunks in the future, and how this Kai is now responsible for his death, as well as Shin, who tagged along but isn't really saying anything. Goasu doesn't really know what to believe, so he asks Zamasu to tell him the truth. Zamasu does end up revealing that he does have a secret hatred for mortals, but he wasn't planning on acting on it anytime soon. The thought crossed his mind, but he went against it. However, now he speaks up to Beerus, getting mad about these mortals time traveling, and how mortals aren't supposed to do that. And I mean, he's kinda right, using the time machine isn't really allowed. However, Whis steps up in the debate and says that they're technically Kais, so they should be allowed to time travel. He doesn't bring up the fact that they use a time machine, but if they're Kais, they would be able to use the time ring and do it, so there's nothing wrong with it. Beerus quietly thanks Whis for saving his back there. So Zamasu does back down and he confesses, and Goasu is pretty glad that Beerus and Whis brought this up. The next step is for Goasu to put Zamasu into some Kai rehab or something, or at least keep him under strict watch and try and train him so he's not going to act out in the future. And the fact that he's been ratted out already means he's not going to want to act up because people will be expecting it. Alright, so problem solved. But that means that this Zamasu isn't the one causing the issues. It means that there's actually two other Zamasus running around, well, one now because Goku Black's dead, but it means that those other ones actually went through with their plans, since this one hasn't acted on his thoughts yet. Beerus was actually planning on killing him now, but he knows that that won't affect anything, since he now notices that this isn't the same Zamasu that future Gohan and Trunks were telling him about. Now they're kinda out of ideas and can't think of anything to do, so they return back to Universe 7, thanking Goasu for his help, and telling him to keep Zamasu under watch. Beerus, Whis, and Shin end up arriving back on Earth and tell them what happened, and how they found out about Zamasu being a different one than the one in future Gohan's timeline. And that's kind of an issue because that means Beerus can't do anything about it. If Zamasu is immortal in the future, even if they brought Beerus back with them, well, he can't Hakai them because Hakai doesn't work on immortal people. So now they need to come up with some other idea. Everyone tries thinking, and Goku suggests using Zeno to help, but Beerus instantly scolds him for even suggesting this, not wanting Zeno to get involved. Gohan and Trunks agree with Beerus' judgment. They're wary of it too since they know about Zeno and what he's capable of, so they don't want him getting involved either. So they can't kill him, and they can't just have Zeno show up because that would be disastrous. They can't even wish away his immortality with the Super Dragon Balls because in their timeline that would be too risky to even search for them and they might not even be active, while in the present timeline they were just recently used so they can't do that either. So unless they want to wait a year for that, what is their other option? Well, Piccolo brings up the idea of using the Mafuba, like what was used against his father. Zamasu is a completely different threat, but containing people might work. Yeah, he's immortal, so he's immune to death, but he's not immune to containment. Everyone actually thinks this is a pretty good idea and it's worth trying, so Goku decides to take Gohan and Trunks to Master Roshi to see if they could train for it. Roshi already knows of future Trunks and Gohan from before, but actually getting to train with them is a pretty cool opportunity, and he's glad to help them. It's not like he turned it down anyways. So the two of them decide to try and learn it, and Goku also tries to learn it for himself because why not? So the three of them train for a bit, and after about a few days, they're successful. They have mastery of the technique and they've practiced it enough so that they could use it on Zamasu and probably be able to defeat him easily. Well, as long as the technique works. Since they're not entirely sure if the plan will actually work, they decide they're going to head back alone first with the time ring, no one else will come. Because in case it doesn't work, they don't want to waste the fuel in the time machine, because that would leave Bulma and Chi-Chi stranded. They ask Shin and he thinks that this is a great idea, and he's able to get his hands on 2 time rings for them which they could use temporarily. So the two of them go back alone, and they decide to start searching for Zamasu. They don't even know where to start looking first. Thankfully though, it doesn't seem like he's hit Earth yet, but now the two of them actually gotta go out and find him. They are able to eventually locate his key, and they use the Kai Kai to teleport to where he is. Zamasu's pretty surprised to see them because he thought they were dead, but no matter, he can actually kill them this time. Once he gets rid of these nuisances, then the Zero Mortals plan will go unchallenged. Gohan decides to fight him as a distraction while Trunks will use the technique to seal him. The two apprentice Kais clash. While Trunks watches from the side, waiting for an opportunity, he sets up the container and he's ready. Gohan suddenly jumps back, with Zamasu confused as to what's going on. He then looks over at Trunks, and it's too late. He gets caught up in a wave of energy, unable to escape, while Gohan grabs the container to hold it out for Trunks. Trunks flings Zamasu into the container, with Gohan sealing it, covering up Zamasu for good. They didn't forget the seal this time either, they wanted to make sure this would work. It appears that the technique actually did end up working, and now Zamasu's sealed away for good. and they don't have to deal with him any longer. They return back with the container, giving everyone the good news and thank them for their help. Beerus and Whis take the container so they can dispose of it, and Beerus is pretty impressed with the effort of these two. While they aren't training under him in this timeline, he trusts the judgment of his future self and realizes that these are actually good students, and congratulates them for their victory, and now he tells the students to go revive his future self. It seems going back in time was the right idea because now they're victorious, and they thank everyone for helping, so they get future Bulma and Chi-Chi and head back in the time machine this time. After arriving back, they immediately go to New Namek using the Kai Kai, and thankfully it seems Zamasu hasn't gotten to this planet either. Trunks has never been here, but Gohan's actually kinda nostalgic. This isn't the same Namek that he was at before, but it gives him memories of his time there. Some Namekians there, such as Mori and Dende, remember Gohan, and are impressed to see how much he's grown. They're glad to help and give them the Dragon Balls, and they give their 3 wishes: revive Shin, revive Kibito, and restore all the damage done by Zamasu and Goku Black. The Namekians do have one question though. Doesn't Earth have its own set of Dragon Balls? Why are they here now? Gohan explains what happened on Earth since they were at Namek, and while everything's all good now, the Namekians are sad to hear this. Wanting to show gratitude from when they saved the Namekians back when Frieza attacked their old planet, they decide they should throw Earth a bone and give them a new guardian. And of course that guardian is Dende. It's been a long time since Dende saw the Earthlings, but he's still grateful for everyone helping out and he's glad that Gohan's here again. The funny thing here is that would technically mean that Gohan and Trunks are Dende's superior by default because they are apprentice Kais. So Dende's kinda like their new employee, I guess? I don't know. And while they have no use for the Dragon Balls right now, it's good that they're back on Earth just in case, and that they have a guardian once again. Gohan and Trunks return to Beerus and Shin, who are proud of their students, and thank them for not only saving them, but this timeline as a whole. And to avoid anything like this in the future, I guess Shin would want to show them where the time rings are this time so they don't have to go with a time machine again. It's good to prevent that same mistake from happening twice. So now with that out of the way, what happens now? Well, we'll call this a temporary ending. The Universe 6 tournament hasn't happened, meaning Zeno won't get the idea for the Tournament of Power either, and by extension that means no Broly movie. Will the Moro arc happen? Probably, but I'm not going to do that right now because I want to wait for that arc to finish first before I cover it in a What If. So this will be a temporary hiatus for this What if not the finale. Maybe Champa could still visit in the future and have the Universe 6 tournament happen, but I digress. We'll have to save that for another time. Besides that, I might do a video covering what happened in the present timeline, because like I mentioned, some things have changed, but it's not a lot. But yeah, I guess this is where this scenario ends. So what did you guys think about this scenario? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and suggest anything you want to see in the future. If you liked the video, be sure to drop a like, and if you haven't already, why not subscribe, as well as hitting the bell icon to get notified of any future parts of this What If there are any, and any other videos that I make on my channel. Thank you all for watching, thank you for supporting this What If, and I'll see you on my next video.